The massive holographic display flickered, casting an ethereal blue light across the United Earth Council chambers. Captain Marcus Chen stood motionless, his reflection a stark contrast against the translucent projection of the Interstellar Concorde's latest mandate. Around him, the remnants of humanity's space leadership looked defeated, their shoulders slumped under the weight of unprecedented galactic humiliation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez shifted her weight, the subtle whir of her augmented eye barely audible in the tense silence. Unlike her colleagues, she saw beyond the words scrolling across the display. Each restriction was not a wall, but a puzzle waiting to be solved. "Total disarmament," muttered Admiral Kaminsky, his weathered hands clenched into fists. "They're treating us like children." The Concorde's decree was comprehensive and ruthless. Humanity, the newest member of the interstellar community, was to be completely stripped of any military potential. Every spacecraft design would be subject to immediate review. Weapon systems were forbidden. Even research into advanced propulsion technologies that could be weaponized was prohibited. Elena's augmented eye quickly scanned the document, its quantum-linked neural interface parsing through layers of legal language. Most would see a death sentence for human space ambitions. She saw opportunity. "It's not about what they're saying," she whispered to Marcus. "It's about what they're not saying." The history behind this moment was complex. Humanity had burst onto the galactic stage barely 50 years earlier, shocking the established civilizations with their rapid technological advancement. Where most species took centuries to develop interstellar travel, humans had done it in decades. Their ability to adapt, to innovate, to transform seemingly insurmountable challenges had both impressed and terrified the older galactic powers. The Void incident had been the final trigger. During humanity's first deep space exploration, they had inadvertently discovered and partially neutralized an ancient threat that had been consuming entire star systems for millennia. The older species saw this not as a heroic act, but as a dangerous disruption of a carefully maintained cosmic balance. Marcus understood the political undertones. The Concorde wasn't just restricting human military potential. They were attempting to clip humanity's wings before they could truly take flight. "They're afraid," Elena continued, her voice low. "Not of what we are, but of what we might become." Admiral Kaminsky approached, his cybernetic leg, a reminder of the countless conflicts that had shaped human space exploration, creating a rhythmic metallic tap against the chamber's floor. "Rodriguez, your reputation for finding loopholes is legendary. But this time, the restrictions are absolute." A small smile played on Elena's lips. Absolute was a word that had never truly existed in human innovation's vocabulary. The holographic display continued to scroll, detailing increasingly absurd restrictions. No vessel could have more than a specific thrust-to-mass ratio. Communications arrays were limited in bandwidth. Research funding would be monitored and controlled by external committees. What the Concorde didn't realize was that every restriction was a challenge to human ingenuity. Marcus studied Elena's expression. He had worked with her for years, and he recognized the dangerous glint in her eye, the look of someone who was already 3 steps ahead of everyone else in the room. "We're not going to just accept this," he said. It wasn't a question. Elena's augmented eye flickered, running multiple computational scenarios simultaneously. "Accept it? No. Work within it? Absolutely." The other council members began to disperse, their spirits broken. But Elena and Marcus remained, surrounded by the fading holographic light, already beginning to map out the first threads of a resistance that would reshape galactic politics. Outside the council chambers, the first hints of a new day began to break over Earth. Massive space elevators stretched into the sky. Quantum communication networks hummed with potential, and millions of humans continued their daily lives, unaware that a small group was about to challenge the most powerful political entity in known space. Humanity had always been defined by its ability to transform limitations into opportunities. The interstellar Concorde was about to learn that lesson in the most dramatic way possible. The underground server farm hummed with a life of its own, a labyrinth of quantum processors hidden beneath the abandoned industrial complex in what was once called the Ruhr Valley. Yuki Nakamura's fingers danced across holographic interfaces, her movements so precise they seemed almost mechanical. "Another layer," she muttered, her lips barely moving. A cascade of encrypted data streams split and merged, creating a communication network that would make traditional cryptography look like children's scribbles. Ahmed Hassan watched from across the room, a steaming cup of Arabic coffee balanced precariously on a stack of technical manuals. His family had been engineers for generations, first in constructing buildings, then in building dreams that touched the stars. The Concorde's restrictions felt personal to him, a direct assault on humanity's fundamental right to explore and innovate. "The quantum entanglement protocol is holding," Yuki announced, her voice cutting through the electronic background noise. "But we're running a risk. Each transmission leaves a microscopic signature." Robert Blackwood, the retired military strategist, leaned forward. His eyes, sharp despite his age, had seen countless conflicts. Some fought with weapons, others with information. "Signatures can be masked," he said. "We need to make our network look like random noise to any external observer." The team had assembled not by chance, but through a complex web of connections that predated the Concorde's restrictions. Yuki, a quantum engineering prodigy who had been developing communication technologies since she was a teenager. Ahmed, whose material science background gave him insights into molecular restructuring that bordered on the miraculous. Blackwood, whose tactical mind had been honed through decades of geopolitical conflicts. Each of them had been marginalized in their own way. Yuki's groundbreaking research had been shelved by conservative academic institutions. Ahmed's most innovative proposals had been buried under bureaucratic red tape. Blackwood had been forcibly retired when he began questioning the politically expedient narratives of military leadership. The Concorde thought they had neutralized humanity's potential. They were wrong. A holographic display flickered to life, showing a complex three-dimensional map of global communication networks. Red lines represented traditional communication channels, easily monitored, controlled, predictable. But beneath them, almost invisible, a network of blue threads began to emerge. "Biological encryption," Ahmed explained, noticing Yuki's questioning glance. "We're using protein-based data storage techniques, information encoded at the molecular level, using DNA-like structures that can be transmitted through seemingly innocuous biological signals." Blackwood chuckled. "They want to restrict our technological development. We'll develop technologies they can't even comprehend." The room was a testament to human adaptability. Salvaged equipment from research labs, military surplus, and cutting-edge prototypes were integrated into a system that was more organic than mechanical. Cooling systems made from repurposed medical equipment. Power supplies cobbled together from experimental fusion research. Communication arrays that looked more like biological networks than technological infrastructure. Outside, the world continued its routine. Billions of humans went about their daily lives, unaware that a small group was weaving a resistance so sophisticated it made traditional espionage look like amateur hour. Yuki's augmented reality display suddenly highlighted a potential vulnerability. "We need a distribution method," she said, "something that looks completely mundane but can carry our communication network." Ahmed's eyes lit up. Scientific research grants, minor academic publications, open-source technology development platforms. "Exactly," Blackwood nodded. "We'll hide our network in plain sight. Every seemingly innocuous research paper, every open-source project, every distributed computing initiative, they'll carry fragments of our true communication." The complexity of their plan was its own form of camouflage. No single transmission would reveal the entire network. No single piece of research would hint at their true capabilities. They were building a resistance that was more like an ecosystem than a traditional organization. As dawn broke outside the hidden facility, the team continued their work. They weren't just developing a communication network. They were rewriting the fundamental rules of technological engagement. The Concorde believed they had limited humanity. In reality, they had just provided the spark that would ignite a technological revolution. The material shimmered between states of matter, defying everything Dr. Elena Rodriguez understood about molecular physics. In her hands, what appeared to be a simple titanium alloy sample transformed, its atomic structure rearranging with a fluidity that seemed almost alive. Quantum-locked metamaterials, she whispered to herself, are not just a technology. They're a revolution. The laboratory was a carefully constructed maze of misdirection. To any external observer, it looked like a standard materials research facility. Holographic displays showed seemingly mundane research into structural engineering, with graphs and data streams that would bore even the most persistent investigator. But beneath the surface, something extraordinary was happening. Ahmed Hassan approached, carrying a quantum resonance scanner. His background in materials science had always pushed beyond conventional boundaries, but this project was different. They were creating materials that could fundamentally reshape themselves at the atomic level, responding to environmental stimuli in ways that defied traditional engineering principles. "Watch this," Ahmed said, activating a complex series of quantum frequency generators. The titanium sample began to change. Its surface rippled like liquid, then hardened into complex geometric patterns. Within moments, it had transformed from a simple metallic sheet into an intricate structural component that looked like it could be part of a precision scientific instrument, or something far more complex. Elena's augmented eye ran multiple simultaneous analyses. Each transformation was a carefully calculated dance of atomic restructuring. The material wasn't just changing shape, it was fundamentally reimagining its own existence. The Concorde's restrictions depend on fixed definitions, she explained to Ahmed. A weapon is defined by its form, its immediate capabilities. But what if a weapon could be something else entirely? Something that exists in a state of potential. Their work drew from multiple scientific disciplines. Quantum mechanics merged with materials science. Biomimetic engineering intersected with advanced computational modeling. They were creating technologies that blurred the lines between organic and inorganic, between tool and intelligence. Yuki Nakamura entered the lab. Her quantum communication systems integrated seamlessly with the research environment. "We've got another problem," she said, projecting a holographic display of global technological monitoring systems. The Concorde's surveillance is becoming more sophisticated. The challenge was multifaceted. They weren't just developing technology, they were creating a form of technological camouflage that could exist in multiple states of functionality. A communications array that could become a sensor system. A mining laser that could transform into a precision cutting tool. A propulsion system that could mimic scientific research equipment. Robert Blackwood's strategic mind was working overtime. "It's not about creating a weapon," he explained, reviewing the data. "It's about creating potential. Every system we develop needs to have a dozen legitimate scientific applications, with weaponization as an emergent, unexpected capability." The lab was a testament to human creativity. Salvaged equipment from decommissioned research projects sat alongside cutting-edge prototypes. 3D printing systems could generate components with molecular-level precision. Quantum computers ran simulations that would have been impossible a decade earlier. Elena pulled up a holographic model of their most ambitious project, a modular spacecraft design that could reconfigure itself at the atomic level. To the Concorde's monitoring systems, it would appear as nothing more than a standard research vessel. But its true potential lay in its ability to transform, to adapt, to become something entirely unexpected. "We're not just building technology," she told her team. "We're creating a new paradigm of existence. The Concorde sees technology as a fixed state. We're proving it's a fluid concept." Ahmed adjusted a quantum frequency modulator. Each component is a puzzle piece. Alone, they're harmless. Together, they become something unprecedented. Outside the laboratory, the world continued its routine. Billions of humans went about their daily lives, unaware that a small group was rewriting the fundamental rules of technological development. The Concorde believed they had limited humanity's potential. In reality, they had just provided the ultimate challenge, and humanity was about to demonstrate why they were the most adaptive species in the known universe. As night fell, the laboratory continued to hum with possibility. Each experiment was a whisper of rebellion, each molecular transformation a statement of human potential. The Horizon 7 research vessel drifted silently through the asteroid belt, its exterior a masterpiece of deliberate mediocrity. To any external observer, it was precisely what it claimed to be, a standard scientific survey craft conducting routine mineral assessments. Captain Aria Chen, Marcus's younger sister and a brilliant spacecraft systems engineer, monitored the ship's internal diagnostics with a mixture of anticipation and professional calm. Her crew was a carefully selected group of individuals who understood that this mission was far more than a simple research expedition. "Incoming debris field," announced Lai Wei, the navigation specialist. His fingers danced across holographic controls, but there was something more calculated in his movements. Every action was a test, every system a potential transformation waiting to happen. The asteroid belt was their proving ground. Millions of kilometers from Earth, far from the Concorde's most intensive monitoring systems, the Horizon 7 would demonstrate what humanity had been quietly developing. The first challenge came unexpectedly. A massive chunk of nickel-iron asteroid, roughly the size of a small moon, began to drift dangerously close to their trajectory. Standard scientific vessels would calculate an avoidance route, burning precious fuel to maintain a safe distance. Aria's lips curved into the slightest smile. "Initiate adaptive response protocol," she commanded. The ship's exterior began to shimmer. What appeared to be standard sensor arrays and communication equipment started to reconfigure. Molecular structures shifted, quantum-locked materials rearranging themselves with a precision that bordered on the miraculous. The ship's hull wasn't just changing, it was thinking. Gravitational manipulation fields emerged from what moments ago looked like simple scientific equipment. The massive asteroid's trajectory began to subtly alter, not through brute force, but through an elegant dance of quantum interactions. To any external monitoring system, it would appear to be nothing more than a scientific vessel conducting standard gravitational research. Lai Wei's console displayed multiple layers of data. Gravitational deflection at 97.3% efficiency, he reported. Zero additional fuel expenditure. Minimal energy signature. In the observation deck, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, monitoring remotely through quantum-entangled communication systems, watched with scientific precision. Every movement, every molecular reconfiguration was being recorded, analyzed, dissected. "The beauty is in the misdirection," she muttered to Marcus, who stood beside her. "We're not just developing technology. We're creating a philosophy of adaptive potential." The ship continued its transformation. What moments ago looked like standard scientific equipment now contained complex defensive systems, propulsion capabilities that defied conventional physics, and computational matrices that could process tactical scenarios faster than any known alien technology. Aria understood the stakes. This wasn't just a technological demonstration. It was a statement about human potential. A secondary challenge emerged. A small cluster of micrometeorites approached, presenting a potential threat to the vessel's external systems. Where a standard research vessel would activate standard deflector shields, leaving a distinctive energy signature, the Horizon 7 responded differently. The ship's exterior began to develop a microscopic texture, nanoscale structures that could absorb and redirect kinetic energy. The micrometeorites weren't deflected or destroyed. They were simply integrated, absorbed into the ship's adaptive exterior in a way that would make them invisible to any monitoring system. "Micrometeorite interaction complete," Lai Wei reported. "Zero external energy signature. Structural integrity at 100%. Robert Blackwood, watching from the remote monitoring station, nodded with a veteran's appreciation. "They're not just building a ship," he said to Aunt Hassan. "They're building a living system that can adapt, respond, and survive." The mission lasted 72 hours. To the Concorde's monitoring systems, it was a completely unremarkable scientific survey. A few routine data transmissions, standard trajectory corrections, nothing to suggest the technological revolution happening right before their eyes. But for the team behind the Horizon 7, it was everything. As the vessel completed its mission and began its return trajectory, Area Chen allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. They had just demonstrated that humanity's potential was limited only by imagination and the ability to see beyond current technological paradigms. The universe was about to learn that limitations were nothing more than unexplored opportunities. The Concorde Central Intelligence Hub occupied a massive orbital complex that defied traditional architectural concepts. Suspended between three artificial quantum-locked gravity wells, the facility was a testament to millennia of advanced alien technological development. Holographic interfaces shimmered with data streams from across known space, each thread of information meticulously analyzed by some of the most advanced artificial intelligence systems ever conceived. Director Kryax of the Xenological Monitoring Division was not a creature prone to emotional responses. A member of the syndicate species, a silicon-based life form that processed information with crystalline precision. He represented the pinnacle of analytical thinking. And right now, something was setting off every computational alarm in his extensive network. Anomaly. He spoke, his voice a precise modulation of quantum-encoded frequencies. The holographic displays around him began to dance with a complex series of data points, each representing human-controlled space sectors. His primary assistant, a quantum-linked AI named ARI, Advanced Relational Intelligence Algorithm, materialized as a translucent blue projection. Analysis complete. Statistically improbable variances detected in multiple scientific research missions conducted by human vessels. The anomalies were subtle, so subtle that any other monitoring system might have overlooked them. A gravitational deflection that was mathematically perfect, a micrometeorite interaction that defied standard probabilistic models, communication bandwidths that contained layers of information beyond their apparent content. Kryax's crystalline neural networks began to reconstruct potential scenarios. The human vessels appeared, on all standard metrics, to be completely compliant with Concorde restrictions. Their mission logs were impeccable. Their research data seemed routine. And that precisely was what made them suspicious. In the vast chamber of the intelligence hub, holographic representations of human-controlled space began to shift. Each data point was color-coded, green for seemingly compliant missions, yellow for those with minor irregularities, and a new category that ARIA had just created, a pulsing, almost imperceptible shade of orange. "Explain the orange classification," Kryax commanded. Aria's projection tilted slightly, a learned human-like gesture of analytical contemplation. Statistical improbability exceeds standard deviation by 0.37%. Insufficient for definitive action, but suggestive of deliberate technological obfuscation. The Concorde had spent millennia monitoring emerging species. They had protocols for technological development, carefully crafted containment strategies that had successfully limited dozens of species throughout galactic history. Humanity was supposed to be their most recent success story. A potentially volatile species brought quickly under control. But something was different this time. In a secondary monitoring station, a younger Concorde analyst named Zrina noticed something even more peculiar. The human research missions seemed to be creating a subtle network of information transfer that existed between their seemingly routine data transmissions. It was like watching water flow between seemingly solid objects, impossible, and yet happening right before her sensors. "Director," she interrupted the primary analysis, "I'm detecting quantum entanglement patterns in what should be standard scientific communications." Kryax's attention shifted. Quantum entanglement was not something to be dismissed lightly. It represented a level of technological sophistication that most emerging species wouldn't achieve for centuries. The problem with humanity was their unpredictability. Most species followed predictable technological development curves. They would achieve certain milestones, hit technological barriers, and require guidance. Humanity seemed to view those barriers as interesting challenges to be dismantled rather than limitations to be respected. AI began generating potential scenarios. Each computational pathway revealed something both fascinating and deeply concerning. The human vessels were not just conducting research. They were conducting a form of technological jazz, improvising, adapting, transforming their very technological infrastructure in real time. Recommendation: AI's projection stated, increased monitoring protocols. Current containment strategies may be insufficient. Cryax's crystalline neural networks pulsed with a sensation that, in a biological organism, might have been called concern. Humanity was supposed to be a controlled variable. They were becoming something else entirely. In the vast, cold expanse of the intelligence hub, the first seeds of genuine uncertainty about human potential began to take root. The universe was about to change, and most of it didn't even know yet. The first signs came from the Galactic Rim, a region so distant that most civilizations considered it little more than a theoretical boundary. A series of communications burst, fragmented and chaotic, leaked through quantum communication networks typically reserved for highest priority intelligence transmissions. Dr. Samira Okoye, lead xenobiological researcher at the Interstellar Threat Assessment Center, was the first human to piece together the terrifying pattern. The transmissions weren't just messages. They were death screams of entire civilizations. "This is different," she muttered, her augmented neural interfaces processing information at speeds that would have been impossible a decade earlier. The data streams showed something unprecedented, a form of existence that defied every known principle of cosmic interaction. The Void Harvesters were not a conventional threat. They weren't a species in any traditional sense. They were more like a quantum-level predation event, an entropic phenomenon that consumed not just matter, but the very fundamental structures of space-time itself. Where a traditional invasion would involve ships, weapons, or recognizable attack vectors, the Void Harvesters simply unmade things. Entire star systems would vanish, not destroyed, but retroactively erased from existence. Civilizations with millions of years of history would be reduced to quantum probability traces. The Concorde's monitoring systems began to fail. Their most advanced predictive algorithms collapsed when trying to model the harvester's movement patterns. It was as if reality itself became fluid, with the laws of physics bending and reshaping around these entities. Admiral Elena Rodriguez was called into an emergency session of the Interstellar Defense Council. The room was a microcosm of galactic diversity, holographic projections of various species representing civilizations that had, moments ago, been bitter rivals. "They've already consumed the Krylex home systems," reported a crystalline representative, its form flickering with what could only be described as fear. 17 core worlds. Gone. Not destroyed. Unmade. The traditional power structures were crumbling. The Concorde's careful hierarchies of technological control meant nothing in the face of an existential threat that consumed entire civilizations faster than most species could even comprehend the danger. Yuki Nakamura's quantum communication networks began picking up increasingly desperate transmissions, not just from human sources, but from every known civilization. The universal translator in her system was working overtime, converting panicked messages from dozens of alien languages. "They're not just consuming matter," she reported to Marcus Chen. "They're consuming potential. Every timeline, every possible future for those civilizations. Gone." The scientific understanding was maddeningly complex. The Void Harvesters weren't a traditional enemy. They were more like a cosmic cleaning mechanism, a force that erased potential futures that didn't meet some incomprehensible criteria of cosmic development. Ahmed Hassan's materials research took on a new urgency. The adaptive technologies they had been developing were no longer just a rebellion against the Concorde's restrictions. They were becoming humanity's potential salvation. "We're not just creating technology," he explained to the Emergency Council. We're creating adaptive systems that can respond to threats beyond traditional understanding. Our ships, our research, it's been preparation for something we didn't even know was coming. The irony was not lost on anyone. The Concorde had spent years trying to limit human technological development, to control and contain their potential. Now, those same restrictions might have doomed every known civilization. Humanity's underground research, the quantum-locked materials, the adaptive spacecraft, the communication networks that existed in layers of probability, suddenly looked like something more than a technological rebellion. They looked like a survival strategy. Marcus Chen stood before the Emergency Council, representing a species that had been treated as a junior member of the Galactic community mere months ago. "We have capabilities," he said, his voice cutting through the panic, "that were developed precisely because we were told we couldn't develop them." The first wave of void harvesters approached the known galactic territories. Traditional defensive systems, massive fleet formations, energy shields, quantum weaponry, simply ceased to exist as the entities approached. Humanity's hidden potential was about to be tested, and the universe was about to learn that limitations are often the crucible of true innovation. The first human response came not from a massive fleet, but from a single vessel that seemed to defy the very laws of physical existence. The Horizon 9, a ship that looked like nothing so much as a research probe on initial scans, positioned itself at the leading edge of the Void Harvester's approach. Captain Area Chen's hands moved with a fluidity that blurred the line between human control and technological symbiosis. "Quantum resonance field at maximum," announced Dr. Keisha Williams, the ship's primary systems integration specialist. Her station was less a traditional control interface and more a living neural network that responded to thought as much as touch. What happened next would be debated by xenobiologists and quantum physicists for generations. The Horizon 9 didn't fight the Void Harvesters in any conventional sense. Instead, it began to interact with the fundamental quantum probability fields that surrounded the cosmic predators. Where traditional weapons would have been unmade, where shields would have simply ceased to exist, the human vessel began to do something entirely unexpected. It began to rewrite reality. Quantum entanglement modules developed in hidden laboratories on Earth activated. These were not just technological systems, but living computational matrices that understood interaction on a level beyond traditional technological conception. The ship didn't just respond to the Void Harvesters. It engaged them in a conversation of fundamental physical laws. "We're not fighting," Area muttered, her consciousness partially merged with the ship's quantum neural network. "We're negotiating." The Concorde's observation systems watched in total incomprehension. Traditional threat assessment models collapsed. The human vessel was doing something that defied every known principle of space-time interaction. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, monitoring from the primary research station, understood what was happening. The adaptive technologies they had developed weren't just a method of circumventing restrictions. They were a fundamental reimagining of technological potential. "It's a language," she explained to the stunned Concorde observers. "We're communicating with them on the only level that matters, the fundamental structure of reality itself." The Void Harvesters encountered something they had never seen before, a species that didn't just exist within the rules of the universe, but seemed capable of negotiating with those rules. Quantum probability fields began to shift. Where the harvesters had been consuming potential futures, the human vessel started to introduce alternative probabilities. It wasn't destruction, it wasn't defense, it was a form of cosmic diplomacy that existed beyond traditional understanding. Ahmed Hassan's materials research came to fruition in ways no one could have predicted. The quantum-locked metamaterials they had developed weren't just adaptive. They were a form of living technology that could communicate with fundamental cosmic structures. "We're not just changing the game," Marcus Chen said, watching the data streams. "We're changing the nature of the game itself." The battle, if it could be called a battle, lasted less than 17 minutes, but those 17 minutes would be studied for centuries. Entire star systems that had been on the verge of being unmade suddenly stabilized. The Void Harvesters encountered a form of existence they could not comprehend, a species that viewed technological development not as a linear progression, but as a form of cosmic conversation. Yuki Nakamura's quantum communication networks captured something extraordinary. The Void Harvesters weren't being destroyed. They were being understood. It's like watching two alien intelligences have a conversation, one Concord observer muttered, and we're not even sure what language they're speaking. As the engagement concluded, something remarkable happened. The Horizon 9 wasn't just intact. It seemed to have gained something from the interaction, a fundamental understanding that went beyond traditional technological development. The ship returned to human space, but it was different. Its quantum signature had changed. Its very existence seemed to pulse with a potential that defied traditional understanding. Humanity had not just survived. They had demonstrated a form of technological engagement that was utterly unique in the known universe. The Concord's restrictions had been meant to limit human potential. Instead, they had created the very conditions that allowed this extraordinary moment to occur. The great assembly of civilizations convened in a massive construct that existed simultaneously in multiple dimensional layers. Delegates from thousands of species gathered, not as conquerors or rivals, but as something unprecedented. Students. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the central podium, her presence both diplomatic and scientific. The holographic displays behind her showed not military achievements, but a complex tapestry of technological and philosophical interactions that had fundamentally altered galactic understanding. "We didn't defeat the Void Harvesters," she explained, her voice translated across dozens of communication spectra. "We communicated with them. We demonstrated that existence is not about conquest, but about understanding." The Concord's former leadership sat in stunned silence. The very institutions that had spent decades attempting to restrict human potential now found themselves completely recalibrated. Administrator Kryax, the same crystalline intelligence that had once monitored human activities with suspicious precision, now spoke with what could only be described as respect. "Your species does not think in linear pathways," he observed. "You see limitations as invitations to reimagine fundamental structures." The diplomatic sessions revealed something far more profound than a military victory. Humanity had not just survived the Void Harvester encounter. They had transformed the very concept of interstellar interaction. Yuki Nakamura's quantum communication networks had become the foundation of a new form of galactic dialogue, where previous communication methods were limited by technological and linguistic barriers. Her systems created a form of universal translation that went beyond words, capturing intent, potential, and fundamental meaning. "It's not about what is said," she explained to a group of xenolinguists, "but about the space between the words." The potential of communication. Ahmed Hassan's materials research laboratories became the new centers of galactic innovation. Species that had previously been technologically isolated now found themselves collaborating in ways that defied previous understanding. The quantum-locked metamaterials developed by human researchers became a universal language of technological potential. Marcus Chen, now leading the Interstellar Collaborative Research Initiative, understood the deeper implications. "Restrictions never create safety," he told the assembled delegates. "They only delay innovation. True security comes from understanding, from dialogue, from recognizing potential." The Horizon 9, the ship that had initiated the extraordinary interaction with the Void Harvesters, was no longer just a vessel. It had become a symbol, a living testament to humanity's approach to technological and cosmic challenges. Scientists from hundreds of species studied its quantum signature, trying to understand a form of technological engagement that went beyond traditional scientific boundaries. Captain Aria Chen, who had been at the vessel's helm during the critical encounter, found herself at the center of a new form of diplomatic course. Not a military leader, but a translator of potential. Someone who could help different species understand each other's fundamental approaches to existence. The restrictions that the Concord had once imposed now seemed laughably primitive. What had been seen as a threat Human unpredictability, their ability to reimagine fundamental structures, was now recognized as a critical evolutionary advantage. Humanity didn't just survive, one alien diplomat observed. They transformed the very concept of survival. The Great Assembly became something unprecedented, not a political meeting, but a collaborative exploration of potential. Species that had been rivals for millennia now found themselves working together, inspired by humanity's approach to complexity. Dr. Elena Rodriguez looked out over the assembled delegates. The journey had never been about proving human superiority. It had been about demonstrating that true potential comes from adaptability, from seeing limitations not as walls, but as opportunities for understanding. "We are not conquerors," she said, her final statement echoing across multiple dimensional layers. "We are explorers, and the most important frontier is not external space, but the space between understanding." As the assembly concluded, something fundamental had changed. The universe would never be the same, and humanity had shown that their greatest strength was not in their technology, but in their ability to see beyond current limitations. The cosmic conversation had only just begun.